The sun sank over Los Angeles, painting the skyline in hues of gold and amber. Marcus Reynolds stood on the balcony of his cliffside mansion, a king overlooking his shimmering domain. At 45, he was a force. Broad-shouldered, gray eyes sharp as steel, his presence radiating power. He'd clawed his way from nothing to reign as one of LA's top real estate moguls, turning empty lots into towering monuments of glass and ambition. His name adorned skyscrapers, his wealth, a staggering fortune in the hundreds of millions, whispered in reverent tones at exclusive galas. Yet, beneath his tailored suit, a restless hunger gnawed, a craving for a legacy beyond brick and mortar. Beside him stood Abigail Reynolds, his wife of 15 years. At 40, she was a vision of quiet strength, auburn hair framing a face softened by love, hazel eyes warm yet piercing. 6 months pregnant with their first child, she rested a hand on her belly, a faint smile playing on her lips. Their home mirrored their triumph. Marble floors gleamed, chandeliers sparkled, an infinity pool stretched toward the horizon. To the world, they were perfection. Marcus the dreamer, Abigail his anchor. But Marcus felt the itch of something more, a spotlight brighter than Abigail's steady glow could offer. That night, their mansion buzzed with LA's elite, producers, actors, moguls, gathered for a lavish soiree. Marcus moved through the crowd, his deep laugh cutting through the hum of champagne flutes clinking. Abigail, elegant in emerald silk, mingled with a grace that drew admiring glances, her laughter a soft melody. Guests toasted their bond, but Marcus's gaze drifted to the city below, to dreams unclaimed. Abigail's world was safe, warm, predictable. He yearned for wild, untamed heights. Then Vanessa Blake arrived. She swept in like a tempest, a vision in crimson silk that hugged her every curve. At 32, Vanessa was a reality TV star on the rise, blonde curls cascading, emerald eyes glinting with fierce ambition. Her show, Blaze of Glory, had skyrocketed her from a gritty upbringing in Detroit, where she'd scraped by, dreaming of fame, to LA's darling. She thrived on chaos, her smile a weapon honed by years of clawing for the top. "Marcus Reynolds," she said, voice smooth as honey, extending a hand. "The man who built this city. I'm Vanessa Blake." He shook her hand, a spark igniting at her touch. "I've seen your show," he replied, grinning. "You've got a fire that's hard to ignore." Her laugh was bright, edged with daring. "Fire's all I've got," she said, leaning closer, jasmine perfume teasing the air. "I grew up with nothing. Parents gone, just me in the streets. Now I'm building something bigger. Ever thought of trading towers for the spotlight?" Her eyes locked on his, bold and unyielding. His pulse quickened. "I'm listening," he said, voice low. She slid closer, her tone conspiratorial. "I'm launching a reality empire. Yachts, islands, fame that echoes coast to coast. I need a partner with your cash and vision. Picture it, Marcus Reynolds. Not just a name on a building, but a face America worships." Her words were a siren's call, stirring the void he'd buried. Abigail offered love, stability. Vanessa promised glory, a throne in a world he'd never touched. Abigail approached, her smile warm but cautious, as she slipped an arm around Marcus. "New friend?" she asked, her voice light, though her eyes caught the tension. "Abigail, meet Vanessa Blake," Marcus said, masking his thrill. "She's pitching a bold idea." Vanessa's gaze flicked to Abigail's belly, then back to Marcus. "A pleasure," she said smoothly. "You've got a stunning wife, Marcus. Lucky man." Her smile held a hint of challenge. "Lucky's an understatement," Abigail replied, her grip tightening slightly, her tone polite but firm. Vanessa drifted into the crowd, her crimson figure aflame among black tuxedos. Marcus watched her go, her proposal echoing in his mind. Seductive, dangerous. Abigail chatted beside him, her presence a soothing balm, but his thoughts raced toward Vanessa's vision. Fame, power, a life ablaze with possibility. The party pulsed around him. Laughter, music, clinking glasses, But inside, a storm brewed. Vanessa had lit a match, and Marcus wasn't sure he could resist the blaze. He didn't know it yet, but that spark would soon consume everything. Los Angeles pulsed with a restless heat as Vanessa Blake tightened her grip on Marcus Reynolds' world. Her voice haunted him, smooth, daring, a melody of ambition that drowned out the quiet of his cliffside mansion. At 45, Marcus felt invincible atop his real estate empire, but Vanessa's promise of fame, a spotlight beyond Abigail's gentle love, stirred a hunger he couldn't silence. Nights found him by the infinity pool, city lights shimmering below, his mind racing with visions of her emerald eyes and crimson smile. She was aflame, and he was drawn, moth-like, to her blaze. She struck fast. The next day, Vanessa stormed his downtown office, heels clicking like gunfire on marble. At 32, she was a vision. Blonde curls wild, blazer sharp, her presence electric. "Marcus," she purred, leaning against his desk, her gaze bold. "Thought about my offer? The clock's ticking, and glory doesn't wait." He leaned back, pulse quickening beneath his crisp shirt. "I've thought about it," he said, voice steady but edged with intrigue. "A reality empire. Yachts. Islands. Fame. What's my cut beyond the hype?" Her laugh sliced the air, bright and fearless. "It's everything you've missed," she said, sliding a sleek proposal across his desk, her fingers grazing his. "Back in Detroit, I'd watch rich kids from my broken porch, swearing I'd outshine them all. This is my shot, and yours. 50 million gets us yachts, a primetime show, your name blazing across America. You'll be a legend, not just a landlord." Her eyes burned with a survivor's fire, a girl who'd fought from nothing now reaching for the stars. He flipped through the pages. Glossy photos of gleaming vessels, projected profits in bold. It was reckless, dazzling, a leap from Abigail's grounded world. "Big risk," he murmured, adrenaline surging. "But big reward." "Risk built your empire," she countered, voice low, daring. "Safe got me nowhere, hustling on streets, dodging eviction. Now I'm here. Join me, Marcus. We'll rule the game." Her words were a drug, intoxicating, pulling him toward her orbit. That night, he slipped home late. Abigail sat on the sofa, a book resting on her swollen belly, her hazel eyes soft but searching. At 40, she glowed despite the strain of pregnancy. "Late again?" she asked, concern lacing her warmth. "Just work," he lied, kissing her forehead, her cool skin a fleeting anchor. "Promising stuff. Don't worry." Guilt flickered, but Vanessa's vision smothered it. Red carpets, roaring crowds, a life ablaze. Weeks blurred as Vanessa wove her web. She'd text him, flirty, urgent. "Marina tonight, see the dream." Or, "You and me, stars of the screen." He'd meet her at sleek bars, her laughter ringing as martinis flowed. Her touch, a brush of fingers, a lingering grip, igniting him. She painted their future. "We'll host A-listers, sail the Pacific, own the night." Her ambition mirrored his, a shared wildfire he couldn't resist. Abigail felt the shift. His excuses, late meetings, vague trips, piled up. She'd catch him smiling at his phone, her heart sinking. "You're drifting," she said one night in their vast kitchen, voice trembling, 8 months pregnant now. "What's happening, Marcus? Are we still us?" Her pain stabbed him, but he dodged it. "It's fine, Abby," he said, too quick, grasping her hand. "Just business. Trust me." His words rang empty, and she pulled away, her silence a wound he ignored. Vanessa's pull deepened. One humid night, she led him to a yacht off Malibu, chrome and glass gleaming under stars. "This is us," she whispered, breath warm on his ear as waves lapped below. "Fame, power, yours with one leap. I fought from nothing for this. You can too." Her hand slid up his chest, her lips hovering. The kiss was raw, electric, a line crossed he couldn't uncross. Morning brought the reckoning. He faced Abigail, her face paling as he spoke, cold and distant. I've met someone, Vanessa, he said, eyes averted. I'm leaving, Abby. I need more than this life. You'll keep the house, money, you're set. But I'm done. Her gasp broke the air, hands clutching her belly. Done, she choked, tears spilling. 15 years, our baby, and you're done? Who are you? Her voice cracked, a storm of hurt he couldn't face. Get out! He left, her sobs echoing behind him. Hours later, Vanessa's penthouse enveloped him, her arms claiming victory. You chose right, baby, she cooed, her smile triumphant. This is our empire now. He nodded, but a shadow stirred. Doubt, faint but growing. The siren had sung, and he'd leapt, but the cost loomed, dark and heavy. The wedding erupted like a wildfire across Los Angeles, a dazzling blaze that consumed the city's imagination. Marcus Reynolds and Vanessa Blake exchanged vows atop the Waldorf Astoria's rooftop, its glass walls mirroring a sky ablaze with sunset hues. Hollywood's elite filled the space, directors in sleek tuxedos, starlets glittering with diamonds, influencers snapping the extravagance, white roses, champagne towers, a string quartet weaving magic into the air. Vanessa, 32, was a vision in ivory silk, crystals trailing behind her like a comet's tail, her emerald eyes alight with triumph. Marcus, 45, stood beside her, sharp and black, his gray eyes flickering with pride and a shadow of doubt. Their kiss, fierce, commanding, drew roars from the crowd, sealing their reign as LA's new power couple. Tabloids crowned it the wedding of the century, plastering photos across every page. Marcus and Vanessa trended globally, racking up millions of views. Vanessa soaked it in, whispering to Marcus as cameras flashed, "We're gods now, baby. Untouchable." He grinned, her words a rush that buried the ache of Abigail's tearful goodbye. He'd swapped her quiet love for this throne, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like victory. The honeymoon was a frenzy. Vanessa dragged Marcus into her whirlwind, red carpets, yacht parties, interviews where she spun tales of their fated love. She'd cling to him, her laughter a siren's call, as fans shrieked and lights blazed. He poured $50 million into her dream. Empire of Excess, a show promising yachts, private islands, and unbridled luxury, signing checks with a thrill he mistook for courage. She vowed it'd make them icons, and he believed her, lost in the roar of adoration and the heat of her gaze. Across town, Abigail watched from her Santa Monica condo, 8 months pregnant, her world shrinking as Marcus's expanded. The TV flickered with wedding footage, each image a dagger. His smile, Vanessa's radiance. She clutched her belly, whispering to her unborn child, "We're enough!" Her voice trembling but resolute. Alone, she packed away photos of their life, steeling herself against the pain of his betrayal, her strength a quiet fire he'd never see. Cracks soon splintered Marcus's paradise. Weeks in, he noticed discrepancies, bank accounts draining faster than expected, Vanessa's vague excuses about production costs. She'd vanish for hours, taking hushed calls, returning with dazzling smiles that masked something darker. "Just details, darling," she'd coo, brushing him off. Doubt nod, but he silenced it. He'd burned too much to turn back. Then the sky fell. One muggy Tuesday, TMZ dropped the bomb. Vanessa Blake's 50-mailer heist, star scams tycoon hubby. The exposé was ruthless. Vanessa had siphoned his fortune through shell companies, forging his signature on transfers masked as yacht leases. She'd rerouted funds to a Cayman Islands account, a scheme cooked up with a shady producer from her Detroit days. A leaked video sealed it. Vanessa lounging in a penthouse, champagne in hand, laughing with the producer. "Marcus thinks he's king," she sneered, voice icy. "I played him. Took every dime. Detroit taught me survival. He's just a mark." The clip went viral, a gut punch heard round the world. Twitter ignited. Marcus the Fool soared, memes mocking his wedding bliss with captions like, When your wife's a con and you're the clown. News channels looped the story, anchors gleeful. From mogul to moron, Reynolds's fall is complete. The humiliation was a tsunami, swallowing him whole. He stormed her penthouse that night, rage blazing. She stood by the windows, cool as marble, blonde curls glinting in the city glow. "Is it true?" he bellowed, slamming the article down. "You forged my name, drained me dry. 50 million, Vanessa! My life!" She smirked, unshaken. "You wanted fame, Marcus," she said, voice cutting. "I gave it. Your name's everywhere. I learned on the streets. Take or be taken. You were easy, too greedy to see me coming." She stepped closer, mocking. Poor little rich boy, crying over his toys. "You're a viper," he spat, trembling. "I gave up Abigail, my child." "Your loss," she snapped, eyes cold. "I didn't force you. You leapt. Now run along. I've got a plane to catch." She turned, dismissing him, and he stumbled out, her betrayal a weight crushing his lungs. The fallout was merciless. Investors sued, claiming Vanessa's shell companies defrauded them too. Legal papers piled up, demanding millions he didn't have. Reynolds' properties buckled, stocks crashing as headlines screamed, "Scam King." His phone buzzed with hate, idiot, loser, until he smashed it. The mansion he'd left Abigail with was seized, auctioned off to cover debts, leaving him in a motel with nothing but shame. Abigail's absence roared loudest. He'd called her, desperate, but got silence. A friend said she'd seen the news, her face pale as she whispered to Lily in her womb, "He's gone, but we're not." 8 months along, she'd sold jewelry to survive. Her resilience a stark contrast to his ruin. He'd traded her tears for Vanessa's lies, and the cost was a void no wealth could fill. Vanessa vanished. Rumors pegged her in Monaco, sipping cocktails with his millions, untouchable. Police probed her Cayman accounts, but she'd covered her tracks, a ghost mocking his collapse. One night, an anonymous email hit his inbox. A photo of her on a beach, arm in arm with that producer, captioned, "Thanks for the empire, Marcus." He deleted it, hands shaking, dignity dust. The city that once bowed to him now jeered. The wedding that crowned him had become his guillotine. Vanessa's scheme, born from her gritty past, had razed his world, leaving him broken, bankrupt, a fool in the spotlight he'd craved. As LA's lights flickered outside, Marcus saw the truth. He wasn't a god. He was nothing. Los Angeles turned its back on Marcus Reynolds, its neon glow replaced by the harsh buzz of a motel sign outside his cracked window. The room reeked of despair, stale air, a sagging bed, a TV looping his shame. At 45, he'd fallen from a real estate titan to this, a broken man clutching a near-empty whiskey bottle, his empire, Reynolds' properties, gutted by Vanessa Blake's scam. She'd forged his signature, funneled $50 million into Cayman accounts, leaving him defenseless as lawyers and creditors swarmed. His fortune evaporated, his name a curse, his life a heap of ashes. The world feasted on his ruin. Channels blared, "Reynolds scammed and sunk," flashing that wedding photo. Vanessa's smirk now a cruel taunt. Twitter raged with "Crossed Marcus the Fool," memes slicing deeper each day. Friends vanished, their silence a betrayal, while strangers mocked him at gas stations, sneering, "Hey, aren't you that idiot?" He'd been a king. Now he was a pariah, shunned by the city he'd shaped. Abigail's absence cut deepest. 9 months pregnant now, she'd retreated to a Santa Monica condo, piecing together a life from his wreckage. He'd tried calling, her number dead. A friend muttered she'd sold their old jewelry to pay bills, her strength forged in his absence. He pictured her, alone, cradling their unborn child, hazel eyes hardened by his betrayal. He'd traded her love for Vanessa's mirage, and the guilt was a noose tightening around his neck. Weeks dragged, a blur of torment. Lawsuits choked him. Investors suing for millions lost in Vanessa's shell companies, their lawyers snarling, "You signed the deals, Reynolds. Ignorance isn't a defense." The IRS circled, probing tax fraud tied to her offshore accounts. His company collapsed, assets auctioned, his mansion gone, his office tower a hollow shell. He pawned his last watch for motel rent, hunger gnawing as pride crumbled. One night, the dam broke. The TV replayed Vanessa's cackle. "He's just a mark!" And Marcus snapped, hurling the bottle. Glass shattered, and he crumpled, sobs tearing free. "What have I done?" he rasped, hands clawing his face. The mirror showed a ghost, unshaven, eyes sunken, a stranger where a mogul once stood. He'd chased fame, torched his family, and landed here, a fool in a pit of his own digging. Dawn brought a desperate spark. He drove to Santa Monica, heart pounding, clutching a crumpled $20 bill. His last scrap for Abigail. Her condo loomed, modest, yet defiant. He knocked, breath shallow. She opened the door, radiant despite exhaustion. Auburn hair tied back, belly heavy, hazel eyes sharp with pain. "Marcus," she said, voice cold, a fortress between them. "Why are you here?" His knees buckled, words spilling raw. "Abby, I'm sorry," he choked, tears streaming. "Vanessa took everything, money, pride, but losing you and the baby. I can't live with it. I was blind, stupid. Let me try, please." Her lips quivered, but her gaze was steel. "Try?" she echoed sharp. "You left me pregnant, alone, while you paraded with her. I sold my rings to eat, Marcus, because of you. You don't get to crawl back when she's done with you." She shifted, protective, her voice cracking. "The baby's due any day. I've survived without you. I will again." He sank lower, voice ragged. "I know I'm nothing now. But our child, I'll fight for them, even if you hate me. I've got $20 left. Take it, please. It's a start." He pressed the bill into her hand, trembling. She stared at it, then him, eyes glistening. "A start?" she whispered, anger fading to sorrow. "You broke us, Marcus. Money won't fix that." She stepped back, hand on the door. "Go. Figure out who you are, then maybe we'll talk." It shut, a quiet thud that echoed like thunder. He lingered on her stoop, her words a lash and a lifeline. She hadn't taken the money. It lay crumpled where he'd stood. But her maybe was a thread of hope. Back at the motel, he tossed the bottle aside, resolve flickering. Vanessa had stripped him bare, but Abigail's strength lit a path. He'd lost it all. $50 million, his name, his home, but not his will. Next day, he took a job, hauling trash for a pittance, back aching under the sun. Each dollar burned with the memory of millions, but it was for Lily, the child he hadn't met. He mailed Abigail a check, $50, scratched from sweat, not for forgiveness, but proof he'd begun. She didn't respond, her silence a wall, yet he kept going, driven by a love he'd once spurned. The city sneered, but Marcus didn't flinch. He'd hit bottom, bankrupt, shamed, but Abigail's resilience and Lily's existence were beacons in the dark. Redemption loomed, distant and brutal, a mountain he'd climb one grueling step at a time. The ashes of ambition smoldered, but from them a man could rise. If he dared, a faint dawn crept over Los Angeles, its soft light piercing the gloom of Marcus Reynolds' motel room. At 45, he was a shadow of the titan he'd been. Wealth erased, pride pulverized, his name a whisper of mockery. Yet, in that dim space, a spark flared. A stubborn ember of hope amid the wreckage Vanessa Blake had left. She'd stolen $50 million, his empire, his dignity, but not the tether to Abigail and their newborn daughter, Lily. A fragile thread he'd fight to reclaim. Word of Lily's birth crashed over him like a wave. A friend slipped him a photo. Her tiny fist, gray eyes like his. Abigail's weary smile. Born days after his plea, Lily was a miracle he'd missed. Her existence a stab of joy and shame. Tears fell as he traced her image, vowing, "I'll be there somehow." He'd lost the right to hold her, but not the will to earn it back. He traded the motel for a cramped apartment, its peeling walls a step up from despair. Days blurred into grueling labor, hauling trash under a blistering sun, muscles screaming as sweat soaked his shirt. Each load was a penance, each $10 bill a brick in a bridge to Lily. Nights, he scrubbed dishes at a diner, grease-staining hands that once signed million-dollar deals. For her, he'd mutter, exhaustion carving lines into his face. He sent Abigail checks, $50, $75, scraped from toil, notes scrawled, "For Lily, I'm changing." Her silence held, but he pressed on, fueled by a love he'd once tossed aside. One dusk, he stood before her Santa Monica condo, clutching a worn teddy bear, bought with a week's wages. Abigail opened the door, Lily in her arms, a vision of resilience. At 40, she was unbowed, hazel eyes wary but softened by time. "Marcus," she said, voice steady. "What now?" He knelt, voice raw. "I don't deserve you, never did. I've got nothing left but this." He offered the bear, hands trembling. "I work myself ragged, for Lily, for you. I'll keep going, even if you never let me in. Just know I'm trying." Her gaze faltered, tears brimming. "Trying's late," she whispered, cradling Lily. "But she's yours too. One step, Marcus. Prove it." She took the bear, a crack in her wall, a sliver of grace. From ambition's ashes, Marcus glimpsed truth. Real worth lay in the bonds he'd nearly lost. Lily's life was his dawn, a steep, painful climb toward redemption. He'd rise, one sweaty dollar at a time. Hey, incredible viewers! Thanks for riding Marcus's roller coaster. Can he win Abigail back? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like if it hit you hard, and subscribe for more epic tales. You're amazing. See you next time.